Yeah, hey everybody, this is Ian from Mindful Marketplace, and in this quick video, I'm going to show you how to deliver an audio podcast on Circle, on the Circle community platform. There are lots of ways of doing this, obviously, but my interest is private podcasting. So we really want to publish lots of audio centric, private, members only content on our community. We want to be able to utilize the community interactivity and the audience engagement elements that something like Circle does so well in conjunction with audio first content, podcast content that's protected from the public. So this is members only style content. You can't do this with Spotify. I don't think you can do it with SoundCloud. So that sort of removes those more kind of Captain Obvious recommendations and sort of relegates us into the, kind of murkier waters of the podcast hosting platforms that enable or allow you, I guess is the word that I'm looking for, the phrase I'm looking for, to publish podcasts that are private, members only, right? So Castos does this, Transistor does this, Captivate.fm does this. There are platforms like Supercast which do this, but I think that's a little bit more of a edge use case. But the one that really does it exceptionally well is Transistor, and I'm gonna not going to tell you actually why, because there's just it would get too tangential to the topic here. But they allow all sorts of different kinds of private podcast delivery mechanisms. So they'll deliver your private podcast by email. You'll get a LMS style landing page for each member that lists their individual episodes, the ones they've heard, the ones they haven't. It gives you, as the administrator or the community, the platform publisher, the same sort of metrics and interface. And when you integrate something like that with Circle, you're getting this really robust sort of community engagement element in conjunction with the audio content. And it really, to me, is just the private audio content is really just a complete home run, at least for us. So one other thing you can do is that's natively built in to Circle is Simplecast. And every time I scroll on this MacBook, it really is challenging. So I'm going to try to do this without embarrassing myself. All right, Simplecast is right down here. Remember, you can do this with Spotify and SoundCloud, but you can't deliver private content. So you really can't tell your members they're getting private members only podcast feeds when the same feed is on Spotify or SoundCloud, etc., etc. You can do it with Simplecast. Simplecast is not quite as elegant as Transistor for this. It's not even close to as elegant, actually. But Simplecast is built in. They have this into the editor, so you can set your Simplecast audios as private within Simplecast itself, and then you could publish these, on your Circle Spaces, and it would be technically a private feed, because no one else is actually getting that podcast published out into the world other than the folks that are in your circle. The problem with Simplecast doing that is you have to set each individual episode as private rather than setting a global podcast as private. There's other issues as well, but the nice thing is Simplecast is supported right within Circle, whereas these other podcast hosts that we're referring to, Castos, Captivate, Transistor, etc., are not, and there's a problem with the way that it displays, which I'm going to show you how to solve right now. All right, so in other words, if you were just to do this, and I'll show it to you so you can actually get a sense of what I'm telling you. If I, let's say, take, is that what I want? Actually, what I want to do instead, I'm still not doing this well. I want to actually just show you the individual link rather than where is that setting. Ian, what are you doing, buddy? All right, let's go back here for a second. This is what happens when you do these things live. I just published this. Here we go. And I want to share that link. So let's say I take that link and I paste it let's say I just use the embedly option and I just embed that link. It's not going to it's not going to show up with all the rich data that we want. Like that doesn't look great. Like you're not getting the player, you're getting the image from the podcast, you're getting a link, and it's going to link out of your community. So we don't like that. That's not what we want to do, right? What you want is for this episode to actually show up in the circle community itself, so folks don't have to do anything other than listen to your podcast where you want it. So what you want to like on your community. So this is a all right, we're going to go into advanced settings. This is the secret right here. You're going to go into custom HTML. You're going to paste the player, and then you can even like dress this up a little bit, as you'll see, by putting in some code. So I'm going to write some code. All right, this player's below the divider. The player's below the divider. Below twice, and you can listen to this episode right here on Circle. Yay me! All right, let's dump down and save. All right, and there you go. Right, so there you have the player right there in the editor, and here's the HTML text that I added. In that custom box. Now, you can add images to this. You can even actually add the some show notes or whatever, but it's not even necessary. You can actually just do that right in the post editor itself. But if you're creating private podcasts, and this podcast could be set as private within Transistor, then only folks who are getting access to this space are getting access to this podcast. And you can deliver these in a sequential way, like audio 1, lesson 2, lesson 3, lesson 4, lesson 5, ask me anything, bonus episode, lesson 6, lesson 7. You could do it that way and really deliver this very elegant, audio centric course or product, but get the benefit of all of the interactivity that comes with running a circle as well. So I think about some of the private podcasts that I subscribe to, and I subscribe to a bunch. I would love the opportunity to like interact with other folks who are also, engaging in that private podcast on a community like Circle. I mean, it's such a perfect match if you're publishing, this sort of platform. And I'm surprised that some of those folks have not yet implemented some sort of community building element. I'm sure there are some, just not ones that I subscribe to, so I haven't seen that in the world. Okay, the other thing that's awesome about Transistor, and I'll show you another way of doing this. It's not ideal, but Transistor will actually also publish your podcast to YouTube automatically, right? So every time you record something, and once you set the sync up, it will publish your content to YouTube, and then you can simply just privatize those videos on YouTube and then add those. Right? So this is a podcast episode.
11 new rules.
All right, so you can hear that's a podcast episode. So I would be setting this as private, and then you're getting the same, end effect. You're just diminishing the gravitas a little bit, the cachet, by dint of using a YouTube video that folks kind of think to themselves, well, I could probably get this on YouTube, even if you say you can't get this on YouTube. It's only for our community because these videos are all private. I mean, those videos are still going to be out there on YouTube, whereas a private podcast is not. Once it's privatized, only folks who you give access to that RSS feed, again, by dint of your circle content restriction, or otherwise, doesn't need to be done on Circle, obviously. Anyone you give access to that RSS feed can access the player or the podcast, and you can rescind that at any time. So somebody shares your feed, and you see that, and they're violating whatever terms of service you may have, or otherwise, or they quit your community. For whatever reason, you can take away their access to your private podcast. Whereas you can't really do that with YouTube videos. But that is a workaround for those of you who don't want to incorporate something like this. Okie doke. So I hope that's been helpful. I know I'm very excited about this, and yeah, that's it. Thanks so much. The one caveat I would add is you do need to be on the middle tier of Circle, not the base plan, to have access to the custom HTML tab below the post. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a wonderful day.